Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have Robyn Ferguson on. She has been in a few different bands, but she's pursuing more of a solo career. She's from South Africa. How are you doing tonight?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Sean. Really great.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you.
well, thank you. This is good to have you on. I want to introduce you to some people that aren't aware of you. You totally shred on guitar. You just look ridiculous. Right before the show, I was listening to you again. Fantastic. So I want to talk about some of your songs and your composition stuff. It's super interesting. The way
Nick?
you're like, I feel like your songs and musicality builds. But before I pick your brain on that, could you give just a little bit of a bio to the people who may first time listeners that may not know who you are, that can kind of delve into the world of Robyn Ferguson and you know your music?
Yeah, absolutely. Started playing guitar really young age, fell in love with it and just sort of pursued it with a giant passion. Got into bands from an early age and started like performing in like punk bands, metal bands, went all the way into the extreme metal side of things. And I think a lot of people know me from Adorned and Ash. That's been like my main band for the last say 11 years or so. Um, and then also started getting into vocals. I've always been a guitarist at heart, but started getting into vocals after our vocalist left. And yeah, I found the passion for that as well. So just started really jumping into that and then been trying to really explore my own musicality and ability as an artist, not just as a musician, but as an artist, all encompassing. Do a lot of art and I'm a graphic illustrator by day and, like all of that kind of stuff. So a lot of creativity and focus that. Um, Over the years, I've explored things in other bands like Sisters of Metal, where I am just the vocalist. Like I don't play any instruments. I run around like a headless chicken. Um, in the last say 5 years or so, I've been working on a lot of session things. I've done Alice Cooper tribute shows and Led Zeppelin and Whitesnake and stuff like that, a couple like medley tribute vibes, and that's been a lot of fun touring around with that in South Africa and Africa. And then sort of started breaking away a little bit from that and moved down from the northern part of the country down to the south, down to Cape Town, and just started pursuing a lot of my own solo music. I felt quite ill over that transition period, and that sort of really pushed me into my own solo stuff and just doing what I really wanted to do, which is
Mhm.
playing from the heart. And then yeah, I started releasing solo stuff, which is mainly up till this point been instrumental guitar work. But as I say, I'm an artist, so there will be a lot of surprises coming, and they have been a few. A lot of collabs. Perhaps I'll do some weird and wonderful instruments in time and such. But sorry, there's a motorbike outside. My
It's life.
neighbors. Uh, yeah, it's life, hey.
With Zoom, you had to have a noise, or you have to have a cat jump on your lap, or I've had my dog lick my face during this. It's life.
Yeah, I'm waiting for one of the cats. There's 3 of them around
See,
here. I'm waiting for one of them to arrive,
just
so
proving you're not a hologram. That's all. So
yeah, so been basically just been running around and really just exploring music and just art and trying to get reconnected with myself and my place within the world and in the universe and just like how I want to express myself. And yeah, so set a crazy goal for myself. Tryptage is now my third release in 12 months, but technically my fourth release as a solo artist. So it
yeah.
was a real goal I set for myself when I released Falling Forward. It was just as the like COVID lockdown stuff started, and I wanted
Where'd you get the title from? If you don't mind me, so jumping in there from
oh
is that
yeah, Falling Forward. Falling Forward was just after Alizarin. Alizarin is the first EP, which is like the start of the worlds. I'm creating this. Here goes the motorbike again.
it's okay. It's not that bad here. We can hear over you.
Not that bad? Yeah. Okay,
Use
cool.
your voice as an instrument. Come on.
I'll just start
I'm
screaming at
harassing you.
them.
Yeah, there we go.
um, yeah. So basically, for several reasons. If you talk about the philosophical side of
Well,
things,
actually, well, the Triptych, the name Triptych, and then we'll break down the
oh,
album in a minute. Yeah, where did that
yeah,
come from? Just kind of curious. I always like to see the origin.
yeah. So Tryptage was obviously it's like it was. I wanted to be released on my birthday, the 16th of Feb, but it was a week later. We released the single on my birthday, though. So, and I was turning 30, so it was like a whole thing. Also, it's 3 songs, and then I collaborated with 2 other amazing artists. So, just 3 artists on an album. The
Hmm.
third in which was like I said a crazy goal. I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna do 3 EPs or 3 albums in a year. Let's see if I can do that. And yeah, so Tryptage is the third one. This is like a nice way to seal it off. And
I
Tryptage in
respect that.
itself, the word, yeah,
I'm sorry, you
awesome.
broke up. Oh, sorry. What does it mean? The word means what? You really broke it up at that point. It's like literally like
Ah.
what does the word mean? Sorry.
So yeah, Triptych, the word itself is
Yeah.
literally three, like a
Oh,
panel
okay.
of three, or like
Okay.
a
Yeah.
often refers to like old artworks, 3-paneled things. So yeah,
Okay. Okay.
threefold.
Very cool. Very cool. That's a good
Yeah.
little breakdown. But and so I'm gonna go back and we'll pick it up apart a little bit, just ask a couple questions so people can get to know you too.
Yeah.
When you started, so guitar was probably your obviously your first instrument. Do you play any other instruments or
Yeah, I
anything
mean,
else?
I've got a bass. I got a bass over here in the background.
Yeah.
I keys, not anything to
Yeah.
brag about. Um, I wouldn't say like I can. I put it this way: I worked in a music store for quite
Yeah.
a long time. For most of my working life, I have been in a retail music store, like in a guitar store. Basically,
Yeah.
that's where I've grown up. And then you learn to dabble with certain things. So I
Right.
can get a note out of most things,
Hmm.
but don't ask me what I'm playing.
There's no
And it might
there's no
not be a
test. Yeah.
good note.
No, no, no. I guess my
Yeah.
question it kind of leads into what I like to see is the creative process because some artists can play like just one instrument and some can play a multitude and well and some play just one
Yeah.
or two well. It's not a good or bad thing, but then when it comes to creative process, I'm interested to see how the other instruments bleed over. Like if you kind of just chug through something or you get a melody on something even though you don't play the instrument, like you get a melody on the keyboard then you figure it out on guitar and then you really go
Yeah.
deeper or you know what I'm saying? Do you write on anything
Yeah.
else besides
Guitar's
guitar or
always Yeah, guitar's my main thing. Yeah. So like
well
if I come
obviously.
up with something around on my guitar, that's like everything kind of lives around it. If I hear a melody or something,
Mhm.
guitar is where I live.
Right.
But often if I'm wanting some inspiration or such, I'll plug in music controller or I'll go sit like at a piano or pick up the bass and just like
Hmm.
fiddle around a little bit as
Yeah.
such, and sometimes that brings inspiration, sparks inspiration, vocal wise as well. Like I because I do extreme vocals, like I hear a lot of cool rhythmic sounds, so
Hmm.
like I might want to imitate that with my voice and like bring that into stuff. So yeah, I mean, Gui guitar's where it's at for me. I wouldn't say that I'm like a bassist, the keyboard.
No,
I
no, no. You know
actually
what I'm saying?
am really terrible at those instruments, really terrible. But if they're around and I have enough time to fiddle with it,
Well,
I'll
well,
get
yeah,
a tune out
it's
of
not
it.
about that.
Sure.
It's about the creativity. I mean, some of
Yeah.
the best
Yeah.
songs are so creative that are the most basic. Sometimes it's like how you start. I was just talking today about Billy Squire, "My Kind of Lover." Just that riff and the vocal. I don't know if you know the
Mhm.
song. It's so basic, but it's like it's so catchy. Like so, you can go all over the place with, with that. Um, yeah, your vocals are just crazy too. Just I didn't acknowledge them earlier, but clearly I like your stuff because you're on the show, so it's not like it's a thing. Do you play a lot on? Do you write an acoustic guitar too? I know a lot of people that really break it because your music's a little bit different. So I mean, maybe
It
a
is,
little
yeah.
chunkier, but still, you tear a song down on an acoustic guitar. You can still kind of get the nuances of, you know,
Yeah. I think I write music so very backwards to everybody else. Like, I get asked the question, like, "What's your musical process? Like, how do you write a song?" And it's different every time. And there's a process, but there's no process at
yeah,
the same. Like the process is that there is no process. Try not to think about it too hard. I
mhm,
guess is the process, but um, often like for me, it starts with a bit of a like a rhythm. Like
Mhm.
as simple as it is, even just a click track can sometimes bring some sort of inspiration. I think it's perhaps also like growing up being surrounded by like African church choir and like African church music. There's a lot of polyrhythm that happens.
Which
And
is
like
awesome.
somebody will
I
just
love that.
like
I love that.
somebody will just start off with something and then
Mhm.
it kind of builds. And I think that's maybe I've never really thought of it as like a uniquely African or South African flair, but maybe that is something that's added to my vibe. So like a bit of rhythm or rhythm, and also spending 11 odd years with fantastic drummer Mark Ivy. He was jazz trained but plays extreme metal, and like he can, well, he can, but he hates playing just a straight like 4/4. Like he's like,
Right.
ah, it's so boring. Let's do something cool. And having to adapt vocals and guitaring to what he was playing and and to complement the rest of the band is kind of pushed me into a bit of a more unique uh, way of writing, where I might start off with just like a basic drum beat, which
Yeah.
I program out or write out, and then I build on top of that, or even just like a chug riff. But most of the time, it's a bit of like a rhythm and then actually a melody. Mostly, I think it's because originally I started off as a rhythm guitarist, and I was never actually a solo. I was always in the background, so it was always kind of funny.
Oh no,
Um,
it's good. It's good because
yeah,
a lot of musicians I love to ask that question, and they always feel like they do it differently. And I actually don't. The more I've done this, the more I've learned there's less of a way to do it. Because it used to be like, oh, I just thought of a melody and I wrote it on a napkin at the coffee. You need these stories
I
growing
love
up, right?
it.
No, no, but nobody does that. There's literally the one person you've heard do that was like the only person that's done it. Everybody else has their own way. You got Steve I has a guitar in every room in the house. You got some people that do the rhythm. I mean, if your Dave Grohl says he's a drummer, so he plays drums on the guitar,
Yeah.
or like some people have the influences their music and the melody, and they play the vocals on a keyboard. Then they do a thrash song. It's all different, which makes the creative process so much better. I mean, it's
I think for me, it's like I'm hugely inspired by nature and just by creation itself. Like the universe is bizarre to me, and people laugh at me, but I'm inspired by the like standing on the beach in Cape Town, like um, just at my old apartment. I could look out at the waves and just seeing the pulse of the waves. It creates a rhythm. Like there is music all around us, and that rhythm inspired the Ocean Born of my first EP. Stasis of Tryptage, the
yeah.
beginning riff, like the beginning intro, kid you not, and it's probably the most hilarious fact ever. But I was on holiday with my partner, and there was a pigeon, which is quite annoying, in the tree, and it was singing this little tune, cuckoo, cuckoo, and it had this really unique rhythm to it. And eventually, by the end of the weekend, I was like, actually, this is like pigeon gent, pagent. So I was like, hey, this is
That's
such a
awesome.
rad jam.
You better coin that.
So, and like in other times, I'll hear the wind whistling through the pipe here on the balcony, and it's like a very unique, just the way it pulses through the pipe has a unique melody that it plays. So
I
I'm
actually
like
think that's
gonna
great.
go with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's at all funny. I mean, trust me, I have people laugh at me all the time. I know what funny is, but that is not. That's really great. It's very creative. It's very you're taking it and you're bringing it in. When I listen to music, and this is one of the things I do is I listen to it and I like with years I go back. I was enjoying your music, but then I go back and like I listen to music different ways. I'll listen to it like driving. I'll listen to it just sitting down. I like some music's for different things.
Mm,
And with yours is another type. One of the things that it hits me. I love about the kind of music is it. I see like almost like a soundscape. And there are a lot of bands that do this more and more, but I can see with the ocean and where things in space, where I can see it visually. Especially on the instrumental parts where I can really feel like it's a journey that you're going on. So those
mm,
inspirations from nature really
mm.
play into it. Make a lot of sense actually where you're getting it from because
Yeah.
it's an interesting inspiration that how you play. Um,
Especially, like, I think I've always been connected that way. Um, Grew up on like a farm, so like there's always nature and space around, like always. And as a sort of single child, or only child, I do have older siblings, but they're like far older. So I kind of grew up as a only child, in a sense. But like, you have to kind of entertain yourself,
Mhm.
so you don't necessarily have a television available all the time. So you land up watching the clouds or the birds, and you become entertained by watching and seeing what's around you. After I felt ill, there's I don't want to touch on it too much, but the recovery time um, put me out for quite some time. So I've got a degenerative neurological disease, and it's affected me dramatically over the years. But in the recovery process of that, which continues, there's there was a lot of time in the beginning where um, I had lots of visions, and um, had like was in a really weird space, like um from the illness and the recovery time, yeah. And was having dreams and was seeing colors and all kinds of things, which was also just made me super or hyper aware, hypersensitive to the the sound around us,
Mhm.
the space between, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
So most of my music, a lot of people are like, oh, you're inspired or whatever. It's not really. It's just like I heard something, and I'm just bringing it out and going, hey,
Right.
like, it's like picking fireflies in the in the field. You just, here you go, look,
Right.
and there it goes off again. And whatever anybody wants to tie to that, that is for them. Yeah. For me, it's just a way that I can release my own feelings and
Yeah.
energies and whatever, and my own experiences. And if that connects with somebody else, awesome. Or, like, that's just how it is. So I see my music as just like little
I get.
fireflies in a field. Yeah. And that's how I get inspiration as well. It's the same thing. Just observing.
Yeah. It's music is very expansive, and I think that it yeah, that's your catalyst. It shows, and it's great because the good thing about music and some music more than others, like with yours, it leads to the person, the listener, to take away what they want. So when people listen to your stuff, I want them to listen to it, and like really, everyone's going to take away something different from hearing your
Mm,
stuff, which is one of the gifts of
mm,
music or art and creativity. Let's talk
yeah.
about the tail end of your. Let's talk about your first when you started your first solo EPs, because you have EPs and some of them are a little bit longer than others. What happened? So how did you do the EP type of thing? Like, what made you decide to break down like that and not go like an album, going from a band, the whole changeover? I mean, it's a pretty big thing to have a band and then be Robyn, and then you're doing EPs, now you're an
Yeah.
album. Yeah, I'm saying how.
So at the time of Alizarin, I was, yeah, when I started writing that album, I was in the process of moving. I was performing on stage with four tribute acts, and then Sisters of Metal and Adorned and Ash, and then starting to do solo stuff and working. It was just too much going on. And we were also, Adorned and Ash has spent a few years recording the second album, and it was like this mammoth album, Apocalyptic Violence, and it was like this huge thing of like over 10 tracks, almost a million tracks. And we wanted it to be this big thing. And I think it just took, for me, it was an awesome thing, but it was
Mhm.
such a mission, and such a big thing to like, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, to bring to the table, that I was just like, you know what? I feel I can do so much better by just running and fetching a letter, running and fetching a letter, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like just doing that. And I decided I'm going to just write music and dump it into a folder on my desktop. And whatever songs feel like they fit together, I will release them together, because it's all a story. So like, um, how everything will tie in. And I get asked a lot, like, why don't you make a whole album? Cool. Then don't ask me why it's taking so long to create music, because making a whole album costs a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
even if you record it at home, to get it mixed and mastered professionally is sometimes expensive. Um, it takes time to write a lot of music.
No,
Some people
it
think,
does. There's no wrong answer too. I'm just kind of curious your process behind
yeah,
why you're doing it. So,
so it does take time, but it's also a challenge. I think for me, with every band that I've ever been in, the goal was always to make an album, like let's do like Cannibal Corpse of like this many songs, or like,
right.
let's make this giant album. And I think I've always really, really, really enjoyed that, but I just wanted to be different and do something else. And nobody was doing EPs. So I was like, well, hell, I've got 5 songs. I'm busy moving next week. Or it was like, I think it was 2 weeks after the album was released, I was moving like down to Cape Town, or
Yeah.
it was in that whole spot. So I just didn't have time. And then I kind of just rolled with it. Falling forward, I'd fallen ill. So it was a matter of getting it out before I couldn't, or I may not have been
Right.
able to. Harbinger was released 2 or 3 months after Falling Forward, just purely because it was in the middle of lockdown. We had no idea what was going to happen, if
Yeah.
shows were going to go on, if not. And it was our personal lockdown in South Africa was kind of lifting. So I thought, okay, well, maybe we're going to have shows again. Then we're going on tour. Then,
Mhm.
like, let's roll with this. We're going to tour the albums, we're going to tour the EPs. And now we're in longer. Who knows? I've got music that I'm busy with that is, some of it is ready, some of it is not ready yet. And we'll see. Perhaps there'll be 20-track album.
Well,
Perhaps they won't be.
here's the thing. I
We'll
said
just
the
see.
wrong answer. It's especially in COVID times. Like every artist got a different way. Like, well, I'm gonna put an album out there because people need to do it. So you doing this also during COVID time puts a new spin on it on top of it. Now, a couple of thoughts I have on it. First off, listening to all your music separately, but like your EPs, I like the idea of doing them together because it's very cohesive. And one of the things I'm pretty much open for any band getting different members and changing and different sounds in the creative process. Even if it's not an album I like, the next album I like or not, I think it's more important for a band. I'd rather have a band do something that may not be as good if they like it. That being
Yeah.
said, song order and songs fitting together on an album is pretty important to me. That's probably the one thing. So the thought of you doing 6 songs when you're in that process to someone like me is kind of very cool because it's kind of important because it's very cohesive and it fits together. I mean, it's not it could be like an extreme song and a slow song too that work together, but it's more of the thought process, the creativity behind it than the actual, melody of the song. So I like that, and I also know that a lot of people have said, it's debatable. That sounds like a rocket ship just flew by. Um,
That was the
that
motorbike again. Sorry.
they're crazy. It's like you're in a rally. No, don't apologize. I'm just being silly. So, but the process is no one's buying full albums. There's the other thought, or generationally, like, I'm 50, so like people my age are like, yeah, if artists that I listen to or different genres or age groups would be, I'll still buy vinyl. But
Mm,
like a younger generation don't buy vinyl and they only do digital and they want 3 songs and that's it. So that's a real new landscape too you're in. So doing an
yeah.
EP is not a bad thing because you're like kind of in the middle, and
Yeah.
doing as it
Honestly,
goes. Because
I feel like there is no winning when when we're like, okay, we're gonna put out an album. Oh, it's too many songs, too few songs. Okay, we're gonna load it with songs. Oh, it's too
right,
many songs. You should release an EP. Release an EP. Why did you release an EP? Release an album. So I don't think there's really a win out of
there
this.
is no
It's just a
winning,
matter of
and there's no
making
losing.
music. For me, there is a bigger thing to it. Like there's a far bigger picture, which in time will be revealed, of the whole story. I mean, Alizarin, in terms of, I mean, there's two stories, right?
Mhm.
There is the fantasy side of things, and then there is my personal side, my personal experiences. The fantasy side of things is literally the world of Alizarin is ending, it's collapsing, it's falling apart, and you have to leave, you have to change something, and it's the rising of the entire Alizarian colony and like leaving a world, rising up and going through the void, falling through the void and falling forward, taking the plunge, which is then falling forward,
Going forward.
taking that whole plunge. It is where everybody divides up and just says, okay, I'm doing what I want to do, stuff everybody else. This is me, deal with it. Yeah. But also at the same time, not doing that in a way that is um, harmful or damaging to anybody else. It's just, this is my space in the universe and this is me. Yeah. And I accept everyone else. Harbinger is then the little side satellite story, as I call it, if you wish.
Yeah.
So if this is your main story, I kind of like branch off with Harbinger. Harbinger, if you wish, is the flip side of the world where people have landed and it's weird. And yeah, cool. So I made this plunge to do something drastic in my life and thought it was going to be awesome, and it's not awesome, as a thing. So there you have the worlds at war with each other and realizing, hey, this is all just, we're stuck in the void, we're stuck in that in between phase. That world then collides as falling forwards beam aligns and everything joins up, and the whole story starts to tie in with Tryptage, where you start to realize that you are on the rock and we all actually landed in the same place. From there, the story will continue. But this is where we're at now. We're in the new world. And the world is different. Corona has changed things. So like that's from the fantastical side of things. On a personal side, Alizarian was me fighting to make my own solo mission and just like what the hell, just trying to figure out who I am. Falling forward not only was me literally falling on my face, collapsing with my illness, but it was also taking a plunge and like having faith to do something crazy in not just music, but in all aspects of my life. I changed careers, I changed everything, everything. Harbinger was then also a very weird time for me because it was middle of lockdown. Friends had passed away and I didn't know what was going on. Life was hectic, as for everybody. A lot of things was happening. And now with Tryptage, it's like the hope at the end of the tunnel. It's actually going, hey, this is the new world. You're either going to embrace it or you're not. What are you going to do about it? And that's where we are. Yeah. So there's those two sort of sides, but it's the same coin. Yeah. And you can follow whichever story you wish. Now, I understand it's difficult if you pop on it, if you've never heard of anything and you pop it on and you hear the EPs as individual pieces. Yeah, maybe you want more, maybe you want to like dive into it deeper. And I fully understand that. My thought and the plan is ultimately to maybe join everything and put everything on one big album with the next releases, or on one big vinyl, like a big bulk thing where you can listen to it from start to end. On Spotify, I've already started to create the playlist, the Alizarian Chronicles. This is just the first series in like a library of musical journeys. Yeah. So the Alizarian Chronicles is one section of it. Yeah. And there'll be multiple stories. So
I
yeah,
love that. They all stand alone though too. You can listen to it, and the EPs can stand alone. So it's not like you're gonna make like you're lost. It's just good standalone music if you don't want to even think. I love the stories. I love to go deep. But if you're somebody that doesn't care about stories or you don't really pay attention so much to the lyrics or whatever, you're kind of like or music or whatever in the song. They all stand on their own. So it's for everybody. I'm just so on that level too. But
it's
on a
like
deeper side, it's kind of fun that you can go on a journey that you kind of commit to something and you kind of like
Put it this way, I will be able to release bigger chunks of music if I could afford to do so. And I know that sounds like such a plug, but it is true. If I could afford it, and time is money. And so I mean, like if I had hours available, i.e., didn't have to work a day job, but could actually do music full time, I would have the time to write the songs, and I would then be able to fund it because you're doing things properly. You know what I mean? But for now, I'm literally using every arrow in my quill that I can, and like everything that I have available. I'm recording as much as I can, and literally every day. I mean, if I turn everything's all plugged in here. But if I turn this slightly this way, like
Yeah.
we're in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
So
Nice.
it's work hard, play hard every day. Work 40 hours a week and every other moment you can record and such. Um, and I'm not saying that like that makes it sound like it's a big plug or a big push. It's just life, you know. I also want to have cool experiences and do things and take walks and relax a little bit. And
Well, you should.
inspiration can't be milked like a cow, I suppose. I think that's
No, but
also something
your
people need to
your album.
remember.
Yeah,
But the
your album
awesome, awesome thing, the
of who you
awesome,
are.
awesome part is that the more you write, the more inspired you are. And yeah, I mean, one thing I can guarantee is if I'm able to put out music, you'll hear it. And
Yeah.
I like that's one thing I've promised. Like not playing is not an option. So there will be more music. I can't guarantee how it will be in an EP, an album, a 20 million song album. I don't know. Some spacecraft flying over you with a screen. I don't know, but it's coming.
I don't think there's ever if you put it like releasing music in a win situation because there's like sales and units and digital and who wants this, no one's ever going to be happy. And if you've even if you post one on the internet, someone's going to complain out of 500 people. So to that thought, I think being an artist and being able to get the creativity out of you is the win. And
Yeah,
that being said, almost the sum of who you are. Sure, it'd be nice if you could do all this stuff and have the money, but then so you have the money and you can record, and then there's other obstacles in life. So what's going on now in your life is created all of your music. Some of who you are is the sum of who your music is. So all of a sudden, say you have no challenges and you can just write all day, you'll be like, look what happened with Prince. Vaults and vaults of music that never get released. There's a certain point, like, do you get locked into it? I mean, and Prince is fantastic, but the point is, at one point, there's going to be a balance. I mean, you know what I mean? Who's
yeah,
going to hear all this music at some point? Or what other influences, if you don't have a challenge, are you going to be writing the same music? I mean, look at some of your favorite bands and look at their first albums, and you have 10 years to make your first album because you're practicing, you're learning, you're starving the first debut album. Then sometimes your fifth album, you're like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Because it's not
yeah.
the same challenges anymore. The inspiration's gone. So
I
sometimes
never
being
want
where
to
you
be
are
in
right,
that
right. So
position.
sometimes being where you are
Yeah.
is the best part of the journey because you're like wanting, and sometimes wanting and being on the journey is better than being at the end. You know,
Yeah. My thing right now is I'll push out as much music as I can, but it'll be on my terms. It'll
yeah.
never be for any. My art is just my art. Like I create what I create. I'm fully aware that there are people who will love it, hate it, and not care, and that is completely cool. It's awesome when there are people like you who do care about it and who do dig it, because
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Not only do I
And
dig it, I think more
you
people
know,
should dig it. More people got to listen to it.
like you kind of want more people to dig it, you know. But
Yeah.
like, if it doesn't work out that way, it's never gonna stop me. As long as these are able to do, and as long as this is able to create, will
Mhm.
create. And I think it's also a dangerous thing. I think a lot of artists, as you say, get caught in that like have to produce, have to produce, have to produce. There's so much pressure. I mean, Sean, the album hasn't even been out for a month, like a full month yet, and
Mhm.
people are like, "So when's the next thing coming? When's your album? Do you have a full length album coming out?" You're like, guys, I released 16 songs in the last year and a half. Like, sure. Whew. If you put them
It's
all
incredible.
together, that's a lot of music, you know?
It is.
Um, and so there's a balance to be had, yeah. Um, but I think it's a dangerous thing if you're making music because you're pushing numbers and because like that's all you're focused on. I want to still have fun and I want to be able to do my craft. I'll be able to do my craft more with different things, but I also be able to do my craft regardless of those things. You
Right.
know, music is music. You
Well, I mean,
you
certain
you're gonna keep
things.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certain you could be good at certain things like a little bit more time or a little bit more money. I'm saying those things are bad, but I'm
Yeah.
saying if you exclusively get everything you want, all of a sudden you're like, oh, like and
No, work
maybe
hard.
it'd be great. You can still go with it, but I'm saying I think a lot of your creations and your mindset have gone with like some of the challenges you've gone through. You just shared today a little bit of. I think that's shaped of who you are in a fantastic world, and also there's a relatability that seems that some people aren't being, you know, that can identify, and because real world people and real world stuff is what people identify with, and
Yeah.
it's important, and you're
I've
creating
been
that
raised
is a
on
very
the
original.
Thank you. I've been raised on the like work hard, play hard, like graft your butt off.
Yep.
Hustle. Hustle. And then once you get it, then enjoy it,
Yep.
like enjoy what you work for, enjoy the moment. Sometimes I forget to enjoy the moment, like on stage. Sometimes you've worked so hard to get to play this festival, and then you're playing that festival. Sometimes it's easy to like get caught up in like, oh, you need to be on this interview, you need to talk to this person, you need to play this thing, you need to do this. When's
Mhm.
the and it's very easy to forget that. I'm at the stage now where I'm making music and as it comes. If 10 songs come out in a day, awesome. Then
Good.
let's release 10 songs. If not,
You just
then
gotta do
not.
it for you
But let's
and enjoy
enjoy
it.
it.
Yeah, enjoy
And
it.
let's
Don't nothing else
everyone
is
enjoy
important.
it. Yeah.
Nothing else is really important, and just enjoy the music. And when you play
Yeah.
live, is it is there any kind of prep? I mean, you shred too, and
Huge
vocally
trip.
do it. I mean, so like, there's a physicality to what you do also. Is there any kind
Yeah.
of pre kind of, because you gotta be in a good space? I couldn't imagine like some days I'm having my worst day and then go down and performing to some of the stuff you do. I'll be like, oh my god, I think I've really been your A game.
Yeah,
Did
you
you
have
find it?
to yeah, look, the world is a bit different the last year and a half. Obviously, with COVID, things have changed quite a lot.
Hmm.
Um, partially good and partially bad, I think. It's brought interesting new challenges
Yep.
and really dumb other challenges where like people say you speed your videos up and you're like, bro, come to my house and watch it, but don't come to my house because I don't want to die and I don't want to kill you. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of people, be like,
it's
I'm
a
gonna go to your
pandemic.
house and knock the soda out of your hand and from your mom's basement, and you need to go outside and do something because there's always gonna be
Yeah,
those people. You
yeah.
know.
So like whatever, but yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of prep that goes into it. I it's because of my disease, I still some have like some numbness in my hands and some
Hmm.
paralysis some days. Um, as we speak, today is a good day. I can feel my hands, I can feel my fingers, but it's not always the case. So there's a lot of physical prep that needs to go into like performing. There's a lot of practice. I practice for hours, the same part. My poor neighbors, my poor partner, my poor cats, poor everything. It's just like keep the same thing. I do a lot of um, slow practice to be able to play precisely because I
Hmm.
lost a lot of motor function. I had to relearn a lot of that. So um, going through stuff very slowly, very precisely, and then building it up. Um, take it slow until you get it right. Build it up, build it up, build it up. On guitar, vocal wise, it's if I'm touring, like there's a different tour life and like recording live,
Hmm.
gig live, yeah. Um, there's different routines, but in general is to I try to eat incredibly healthy when I am like
Yeah.
trying to be vocal fit. I don't smoke tobacco or like drink alcohol or anything like that. uh Avoid like the dairies, you know what I mean. And then also there's a lot of warm-ups that go into that. A lot of people think that you can just belt, like, oh, quickly just scream, let everyone hear how you scream
Right, and
quick, and you're
that's
like,
why I bring this up, and I love to ask. I love to have an artist talk about the behind the scenes
yeah,
of it, so people can realize that it's not just anything. It's like a job
yeah,
just to get ready, just to perform, and then you're performing. So I mean, it's like double job. You know what I mean? And so people should. I want them to
yeah,
respect that. There's more to it for you,
yeah.
and you got to learn it
It's
twice too.
the it's
Right,
the
to relearn, you got to learn twice,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, like a vocal is also a thing. You have to, yeah, breathing, like a lot of breath control.
Mhm.
If you've had a very stressful week, some people, like I also carry like some stress around my neck and shoulder areas, then your vocal cords don't want to work with you. Yeah, it's a lot. You have to really like look out and make sure that you are taking care of your body because that's your instrument. But
Hmm.
then, yeah, I mean, all in all, it's the work hard so that you can play hard.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you put in guitars or any instrument is a really rewarding thing. I find like if you, I mean, anybody can sit down and play guitar for 8 hours and brag about it. Yeah, like that to me means
You
nothing.
haven't heard me play guitar for
But
eight
a
hours. I wouldn't be
focused
bragging about it.
practice.
So
No, well, okay, like a lot of people say that's a thing, and it's like supposed to be
yeah, I know.
impressive. But
Right.
if you're not focused in your practice, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So a focused practice is a very important thing. And if you can dedicate focused time to practice, even if it's just like an hour or half an hour, 15 minutes a day, if
Hmm.
that's all you have, and just focus and not do like random stuff just to say that you're practicing guitar, but to actually like, okay, I'm going to focus on this technique and you work at it little bit, little bit, little bit. It keeps you fit, it keeps you there, and then it's just easier to fall into a routine when you are like needing to be gig
Yeah.
ready and
Well,
stuff.
that's intelligent. It's
Yeah.
intelligent because you can do that for probably 30 minutes as opposed to just doing nonsense for a whole day. And you're probably going to walk away a better musician
Mm.
by,
Yeah.
by
Whatever you
focusing.
put back, whatever you put into it, I found like the more hours I've spent on guitar,
Hmm.
like down the line, it's come back to me. Like when I'm playing, like I'll be sitting noodling around trying to just like spark some inspiration, and then just from being fit,
Hmm.
um suddenly your fingers just kind of fall into place, so to
Yeah.
speak, and then music happens a lot easier. A lot of people are like, oh, I'll go to my instrument when I feel inspired. Yeah, if you're never at your instrument, you are never going to be
Be
inspired. So
inspired.
like like inspiration doesn't come to you. Who was it? Somebody famous. Inspiration, when inspiration comes to me, it'll find me doing what I'm doing, you know? So painting or whatever the
Yeah.
person was, I forget the 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 quote. But yeah, so like it's important to be around your instrument. Sometimes I hate
Yeah.
my guitar. I want to wallop it over the balcony here. I'll admit that. Like it's frustrating. Doesn't always work out. Sometimes you have bad days. Just like it's cuck.
Yeah.
You know, like no. But that's okay. Put it down and come back to it either later or
Yeah.
tomorrow. But come
Well, this
back
is
to it. Don't
you
leave
have
it.
actually.
Yeah.
This is a perfect and probably well. And on this note, because we've covered it, but the one thing I want to talk about now is we have a mutual love for Ibanez and or an Ibanez
Yeah.
person mostly. And actually, I just saw behind you. You have an Ibanez on your chair.
That's my
Oh, is this
beanie.
a hat? Oh, I saw that on. It looked like it was part of the chair. Okay, very cool. Very cool. All right. So let's talk. Let's end this a little bit before we end the show on Ibanez here. You
Yeah.
what's the deal with you and the Ibanez company there? Anything?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, excuse me. Ibanez South Africa has been really, really awesome. Yeah, so there's been endorsements before with different things and so on, but as a guitar lover,
Mhm.
my first electric guitar was an Ibanez, and just always gravitated back to it. And every band that I ever
Mhm.
played in, there was always an Ibanez that floated around, and it was always just like a great guitar. So when the opportunity came by to have a really awesome chat, I've known them for a while, like the
Mhm.
local Ibanez guys, just from being in the scene and also a little bit of working in the industry. Like there's only so many female guitarists in South Africa. So like people start to like realize who's who. Um and had a really awesome opportunity to chat with them. And it came kind of on organically where it was like over a cup of coffee, like, haha, we should totally like hook you up with one of these new guitars. And I was like, that would be amazing. Like, do you
Yeah.
want me to record a video? They were like, no, we're serious. And I was like, okay. And then literally after that, it was like, you can keep the guitar if you want, I guess. I don't know. Do you wanna talk about being part of our house? You know, like do you wanna keep this brand with you? You know? Do you wanna roll with it? And it is such a fantastic opportunity to meet these awesome people and then be exposed to um, like the new technology that was coming out with the Iron Label series and the Axion Label series. So it was really rad, and things just kind of happened really organically. And yeah, I've been very fortunate to walk a really cool road with them over the last few years, where um, yeah, like it's been really cool. So I get to have rad chats about the gear that's coming out and
Mhm.
get to see some cool things and really have an awesome time. But Ibanez as its own brand has been such a fantastic leader in the industry. I mean, you've got everybody from the classic illustrated like
Mhm.
Malmsteen and Vi and all of those guys jamming all the way through, and then to the modern players now even
Yeah.
as well. So it's just so awesome to be part of the whole legacy. But the machines and themselves really are great. My favorite part of any Ibanez is the neck, and
Yeah.
specifically like the Nitro Wizard. Once I felt the Nitro Wizard neck in my hand, I was like, boom, that is my guitar for life. I'm a very fussy neck player, and sometimes, like, yeah, like I'm an 80 shredder guitar chick. So I dig the thin neck and the yeah whammies and high gain
I love
pickups.
it.
you know.
No, I think it's great. It's the first thing I noticed about your playing. I was like, oh, it's Ibanez. I mean, Ibanez is it's got its own sound. It's it's really it crosses so
Yeah.
many genres. There's very few things that Ibanez you really can't play Ibanez with. You know.
Yeah, they're so versatile. And like my accent label, my essay series is incredibly versatile. It's got Fishman fluences in and the coil taps. So like you can switch just about anything that you want. If I
Hmm.
roll back a little bit, I can go clean. Like it has really awesome breakup. It's just
Yeah.
such a rad. So I'm starting to geek out here. Then I can't find any words because guitar gear. And then all my words
That's
go
yeah.
out the window.
It's great. I mean, because the fact that Ibanez to me is like one of those guitars you can really get away with playing almost any high end to low end guitar out of
Yeah.
Ibanez, pretty much out of the box, and it's pretty easy to get a decent sound, which is
Yeah, it's one of the
not a thing.
go-tos. You need something you can pick up. You can pretty much walk into any store anywhere and pick up an Ibanez, and it'll be decent to
Yeah.
jam. Yeah, straight off the wall, which is fantastic. It's not often that you can do that. And as you say, from the entry level all the way to the high-end guitars,
Yeah.
like I've never really found like mass inconsistency or anything
Right.
like weird like that. You can get a
No.
really decent guitar for whatever your pocket is, Like I think some brands, not to knock anybody, but some brands sometimes you can look at the more affordable range and like sometimes that's not always the same quality. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think Ibanez
Totally
is
different.
really
Yeah.
cool. They've got a really rad heart. I mean, speaking with them, their vision is to really like push music forward,
Yeah.
like there's not like we're better than anybody else. It's like, well, we're better, but also it's because we believe in our artists and we believe in our instruments. I think that's the big thing. Like they carry a lot of heart, and I carry a lot of heart in my music, so it just resonates and makes a lot of sense to be working with them,
It's
and I think
perfect.
they're great. So
I'm glad you do. I love the sound too. So I think it's a good pairing. As we say goodbye, is there anything you want to end on? Anything coming up? Any thoughts? Thing you want to put out there that's coming up for you? Anything? Or well, for everybody,
yeah, lots of
where can all your music? Yeah.
yeah, there's lots of new music coming out. Obviously, Tryptage is out. Great. The
Hmm.
music video is out, available on all major platforms. And yeah, in the future, in near future, there'll be a couple live shows, live streaming shows that are going to like some festivals that will be airing, which is
Hmm.
rad. A couple hidden secrets up my sleeve.
Good.
Um, and I can tell you that there's going to be some rad and more music in the semi near future.
Excellent. So
Yeah,
people can do that. And so that's awesome. And we'll put all the links below. Okay.
amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sean.